So some things to consider while, if you get an apartment submission, what things I'm considering when I get it and things you should be looking for when you're trying to work up the applications to send it over for a submission. So we're looking for, well-maintained buildings, regardless of the age. We definitely can quote the older buildings. I think I've quoted things as early as the late 1890s, to present day. So there's just going to be different guidelines that come along depending on, the age of the building and what updates they've had and things like that. So updates is an important thing to, be looking at. We're looking for, building updates for these buildings in order to offer you guys the best coverage for them that we can. So with that being said, we're looking for full updates to the heating, the plumbing, the wiring, and the roof within the last 25 to 35 years. This can vary by carrier, what their requirements are for those updates. If it's a brand new building, well then, that'll be a super easy thing to quote because we don't have to be concerned about the updates because we know that it's up to code based on the current standards. Another thing you would want to be considering is what is their annual rents. We need that information in order to offer them business income. That is an important coverage for them to have, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the presentation when I get to the property coverages we would want to discuss. Vacancies, that's another thing to consider. How many units do they have vacant in the apartment? Is it 100% occupied? Most carriers are looking, it depends again by market, but is looking for at least 70 to 75% occupancy for your apartments. And then are your apartments, are they being managed by the building owner, or do they have a third-party management company assisting them in their managing of their property? All right. And then some other things to consider are, how tall is the building? Is it sprinklered? Most carriers, once you get over, some are 5 and then some are 7. But once you get over there, is the building sprinklered or not? That will be a definite thing, and it's important to know if those buildings are sprinklered because there is a credit that is available with some of our carriers in order to offer a credit for having the building being sprinklered.
Michelle?
Yes.
I just wanted to stop you for a minute. We have a question that came in, reference to the last slide.
Okay.
They're asking what documentation is required for building system upgrades.
My markets, at least at this point, we're not to the point where they're actually asking for any form or any certificates or permits showing that the upgrades have been done. They are just looking for the years. I know there are some markets out there that do require these things, and it could become a case-by-case situation with the carrier where they do require permits or some sort of documentation. But at this point, I'm just looking for the years that the updates occurred. Okay. So some other things to consider as well. Like I said, we're looking for well-maintained buildings, and it's not just the buildings. Want to make sure that the parking lot and the sidewalks, that there's no potholes or cracks and anything like that, so you aren't or preventing any sort of trip and fall. We're trying to limit, the potential for claims here. So those are things to be looking out for. Inspecting and the stairways.
And one of the things, Michelle, is that anytime someone changes carriers, there's always going to be a loss control inspection, correct? And you're talking about things that are sort of the hot buttons that get caught on a loss control inspection. So these are things to look at in advance so that you know what may be coming if you make the change.
Correct. Because some of these, some of these loss control items that we find, like these things are, you forewarn the insured and let them know, you might need to set some money aside to make some repairs and things like that. Because some things that are found can be costly. All of our apartment risks do get inspected, regardless of what carrier I place them with. This is just a common class code to have inspected. So these are just like tips and tools we want you guys to be aware of, to let the insureds know, and for you to see if you go visit the property yourself, just so you can make note of, once the carrier does their inspection and comes back with a loss control, then we would go there about how things would be in order to complete the loss control and meet the requirements of the carrier. So like Anae was saying, these are the hot things that, we see most often and just want to bring to your attention. So stairways and any sort of railings, we are looking for the spacing in between them to be no more than 4 inches. I know some carriers will go up to 6, but I'm seeing a lot of tightening up on this. So 4 inches or less in your spacing is great. If there is any horizontal ratings, those are becoming really tough to write. Most markets don't like horizontal railings because it basically acts like a step ladder, and you can just crawl up it, picture a little toddler trying to crawl up it and then getting to the top and then going to the other side. So we're looking for non-horizontal railings. They may be aesthetically pleasing to people and the contractors building them, but unfortunately in insurance, they're just not good. And then if there is a pool on the premises, we're looking for the pool to be fully fenced with a self-latching gate. I've gotten in the past requests where there is a pool on the premise, but the pool is empty and they're not using the pool any longer. So I can consider those with some of our E&S non-admitted markets. However, we do require that the pool is fully covered, either with a tarp or some sort of it's boarded over, and then as well it has to be fenced and locked. But I have run into those before, and I have been able to assist previous clients with those ones as well. And then we're looking to make sure that there are fire extinguishers. I'd have to say having fire extinguishers, at the buildings and the required places properly mounted and tagged is the biggest loss control item that I see across the board. So that is an important thing to have as well. Okay, so how to properly insure an apartment. So we need to accurately determine how many buildings there are. One building, great. If there's multiple buildings, we have to determine if it is truly multiple buildings, as in, there's 2, 3, 4 buildings, or is it one building, but it looks like it's multiple buildings because it's connected by a common roof. So I have some pictures in the coming slides that we can go in a little bit more depth to see what I'm talking about here. So once we determine how many buildings are, then, we need to determine what other components are attached to the building that would need to be included in your building limit. So say there's a fence on the property. If it's touching the building, it is part of the building and it's part of the structure. So we would include that fence as part of the building coverage. Or they have an attached garage, things like that. So would be what we can, and then we want to look at any components that are not attached to the building that would also need coverage. So again, if there was any unattached carports or garages, a laundry room, those would need to be its own coverage because we need to provide coverage for those structures as well. They may not be living structures, but they still need a coverage, a building limit and property coverage for them as well.